I-35F stood silently as they lowered my grandfather's casket into the ground. Rain had just stopped, but the air remained heavy with moisture. My mother Diana, 58F, stood across the grave, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. Next to her were her husband Howard, 60M, and his two children, Jennifer, 28F, and Michael, 30M. All dressed in black, looking appropriately somber, though none of them had visited Grandpa Thomas during his 3-month hospital stay. I couldn't help but notice how Jennifer kept checking her phone during the service, barely concealing her impatience. Michael at least had the decency to keep his phone in his pocket, though his constant fidgeting betrayed his disinterest. Howard maintained his usual stoic expression, probably already thinking about his afternoon meetings. The real drama began when Mr. Anderson, my grandfather's attorney, gathered us in the living room for the will reading. I watched my mother lean forward, her eyes fixed on the papers in Anderson's hands. Jennifer kept glancing around the room, already mentally claiming items she wanted. Through the window, I could see expensive cars belonging to my stepfamily, symbols of their materialistic lifestyle that Grandpa had always despised. To my beloved granddaughter, Natalie Elizabeth Morgan, Anderson read, "I leave my entire estate, including my primary residence at 2742 Maple Ridge Drive, my vacation home at Pine Lake, and all financial assets totaling approximately $2.6 million. The room fell dead silent. Jennifer's mouth dropped open. My mother's smile froze in place. I could almost hear the sound of their greedy fantasies shattering. Additionally, Anderson continued, to Diana Morgan, "I leave my 1960s Rolex Submariner, which she always admired." Mom straightened up. "The Rolex? That's all." "Old fool," she muttered under her breath. I felt a surge of anger. "That watch is worth several $1,000s," I said coldly. "And he didn't owe you anything." Jennifer's face contorted with rage. She opened her mouth to speak, but Howard placed a warning hand on her arm. The tension in the room was palpable. As Anderson explained the transfer process, I noticed something unsettling. Mom and Jennifer were exchanging subtle glances, having some kind of silent conversation. Michael kept texting someone, his thumbs moving frantically. Something was off. After Anderson left, Mom turned to me. "Natalie, you need to consider sharing some of this inheritance with us. Your father would have wanted his family taken care of." "My father has been dead for 12 years, I replied evenly. "And Grandpa Thomas was my family. The only real family I've had since Dad died." "That's not fair." Jennifer suddenly interjected. "You don't deserve all this. What makes you so special?" I looked at my mother, waiting for her to defend me. Her silence said everything. That night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. I knew my mother too well, she wouldn't accept this outcome quietly. For the next few weeks, I noticed strange things. Cars I didn't recognize parked outside my apartment. Missed calls from unknown numbers. Jennifer suddenly starting to follow me on social media. Then came the unexpected call from my mother. Her voice was unusually warm as she invited me to a family dinner. "I've been thinking," she said, sounding apologetic. "I haven't been the mother you deserved. Let me make it up to you. I'll cook all your favorites." Warning bells rang in my head. In all my years of knowing her, my mother had never admitted fault. Never apologized. Something was definitely wrong. But curiosity, and perhaps a touch of recklessness, got the better of me. I agreed to dinner that Saturday, but not before taking precautions. I texted my location to a friend, along with instructions to call the police if they didn't hear from me by 9 p.m. Saturday evening arrived, bringing with it an unseasonably cold wind. As I drove to my childhood home, I noticed Jennifer's car parked a block away, as if she didn't want me to know she was already there. Strike one. Howard answered the door with his usual nod. The house smelled of my favorite foods, but something else lingered beneath: tension, anticipation. Michael sat in the living room, apparently engrossed in his video game, but I caught him watching me in the screen's reflection. Strike two. Mom emerged from the kitchen, wearing an apron I'd never seen before. "Natalie, sweetheart." Her enthusiasm was overwhelming, almost manic. She hugged me tight, something she hadn't done in years. Strike 3. Let me help in the kitchen, I offered, wanting to keep an eye on her. No, no. You're our guest. Just relax. She practically pushed me toward the living room. I pretended to look at my phone while watching the kitchen entrance through its reflection. Jennifer slipped in through the back door, trying to be quiet. She and Mom had a whispered conversation, their heads close together. Mom handed her something small that disappeared into Jennifer's pocket. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I needed to stay alert. Mom called us to dinner 20 minutes later. The table was set with expensive china, the set she'd bought after marrying Howard. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. I heard the clinking of glasses and peered around the kitchen corner. What I saw made my blood run cold. Mom was standing at the counter, her back to me, pouring something from a small bottle into a mug. She quickly tucked the bottle into her pocket when the floor creaked beneath my feet. Natalie, she said, spinning around. I was just making your tea. You still like it with honey, right? My mind raced, but I kept my voice steady. Right. Thanks, Mom. In the dining room, Mom handed me the mug I'd seen her tamper with. Your favorite tea, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her hand trembled slightly as she set it down. I noticed Jennifer had an identical mug. While Mom was distracted serving Howard, I carefully observed the room. Jennifer kept glancing at my mug, then at her phone under the table. Michael seemed unusually interested in his sister's reactions. Mom's hands shook as she served the food. They were all in on it. With practiced casualness, I stood up to grab a napkin, using the movement to swap my mug with Jennifer's. The switch took less than a second, a sleight of hand trick I'd learned in college theater. The next 45 minutes were excruciating. I pretended to sip from my mug while watching the drama unfold. Mom kept checking her watch, her eyes darting between me and the driveway visible through the dining room window. Jennifer's phone kept lighting up with texts, which she'd quickly dismiss. Howard talked about work, his voice slightly too loud, too forced. They were waiting for something to happen. Then it did. Jennifer suddenly stopped mid-sentence, her face turning pale. She swayed in her chair, one hand clutching the table's edge. I don't feel so good, she mumbled, pressing her hand to her forehead. Before anyone could react, she slumped forward, her head hitting the table with a thud. The sound of her fork clattering to the floor seemed to echo through the suddenly silent room. The chaos that erupted was almost theatrical. Howard rushed to Jennifer's side, genuine panic in his eyes. He clearly hadn't known the full plan. Michael stood frozen, his face ash white. Mom started shrieking, Jennifer. Wake up. But I caught it, that split second before she started screaming, when her eyes met mine with pure horror. Not horror at Jennifer's condition, but horror at the realization that her plan had backfired. Howard checked Jennifer's pulse. Diana, call an ambulance. As Mom fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, I cleared my throat. The room fell silent. I think I should mention something, I said calmly. I accidentally switched mugs with Jennifer earlier. I noticed they were identical and wasn't paying attention which was which. Mom's eyes darted to the empty mug in front of Jennifer, then back to me. The color drained from her face. In that moment, she looked older than I'd ever seen her. No, that's not. Howard, call 911 now. Tell them to hurry. I pulled out my phone, my voice steady as I dialed. Hello, I'd like to report an attempted poisoning, I said clearly. I believe my mother tried to drug me, but my stepsister got the drink instead. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Paramedics burst through the front door, their equipment clattering on the hardwood floors. They worked on Jennifer with professional efficiency, calling out medical terms and vital signs. Severe hypotension, bradycardia, possible CNS depressant. The police arrived as the paramedics were loading Jennifer into the ambulance. 2 officers entered the house while another stayed with Jennifer. The senior officer, a woman with graying hair and sharp eyes, took control of the scene immediately. Mrs. Morgan, she said to my mother, we need to know exactly what was in that drink. Mom tried to maintain her composure, but she was cracking. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. I don't know what you're talking about. There was nothing. Mom, I interrupted, they're going to find the bottle in your pocket. Jennifer's life could depend on them knowing what she ingested. That broke her. It was clonidine, she sobbed, pulling the small bottle from her pocket. I took it from Mrs. Winters when I was cleaning her house. I knew it would make Natalie's pressure drop, make her dizzy while driving. She could have crashed her car, and then she'd need us to help her recover. She'd have to share some of that money with us. The room fell silent except for Mom's ragged breathing. Howard looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Michael had sunk into a chair, his head in his hands. Diana Morgan, the officer said, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted murder. Murder? Mom's voice rose to a shriek. No. I didn't want to kill her, just hurt her a little. Just enough to show her she needs us. Drugging someone without their knowledge, especially with medication that could cause a car accident, shows intent to cause serious harm or death, the officer explained while handcuffing her. As they led Mom to the police car, she turned to me one last time. Her mascara had run, leaving black streaks down her face. Natalie, please tell them I didn't mean it. I'm your mother. I stood in the driveway, watching the police car's taillights disappear around the corner. Howard and Michael left for the hospital without looking at me. The remaining officer took my statement, his pen scratching against his notepad in the sudden quiet. Later that night, I sat in my car in Grandpa's, my driveway, processing what had happened. The same hands that had once bandaged my scraped knees and braided my hair had just tried to kill me. The same voice that had sung me lullabies had ordered poison from God knows where. The same mother who had once been my whole world had become a stranger capable of calculating my death, all for money she could have shared in if she'd shown even a fraction of real love. I finally went inside, the house quiet except for the echo of my footsteps. Running my hand along the banister of 2742, Maple Ridge Drive, I whispered into the emptiness, I miss you, Grandpa. But I think I just learned the difference between real family and blood relations the hard way. The police called later to tell me Jennifer would recover. They'd found extensive text messages on her phone showing she knew about the plan. She and Mom had been plotting for weeks. Michael's phone revealed he'd known something was going to happen but hadn't known exactly what. Howard appeared to be genuinely innocent. As I lay in bed that night, I realized something. In trying to force me to share the inheritance, they'd lost everything, their freedom, their reputations, their futures. And in their greed, they'd given me something priceless, the absolute certainty that I owed them nothing. Update 1, it's been 3 weeks since my mother was arrested for attempting to poison me, and everything has spiraled into complete chaos. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. Last night, I woke up to the sound of my fire alarm. Someone had poured gasoline around the perimeter of my house at 2742, Maple Ridge Drive and lit it. Thanks to my security cameras, I have clear footage of Jennifer doing it, wearing all black like some wannabe ninja. The police arrested her at her apartment, where they found more gas cans and a detailed plan to make the witch burn. The most devastating revelation came from my father's best friend, Uncle Jack. He finally told me the full story of the day Dad died. Apparently, Dad had called him that morning, saying he had discovered something terrible about Mom and needed to talk. They were supposed to meet for lunch, but Dad never showed up. He was found in his car, having apparently forgotten to take his heart medication. The police searched Mom's old storage unit based on this information. Hidden behind years of junk, they found a box containing Dad's missing heart medication, along with insurance policies, bank statements, and a notebook full of what appears to be plans for various accidents. The detective said it was like reading an amateur crime novel writer's research notes. My mother's former cellmate contacted me with more disturbing information. According to her, Mom has been bragging about other, eliminated problems in her past. She claims Mom talked in her sleep about insurance policies and convenient accidents. The police are now reopening several suspicious deaths connected to people my mother used to work for as a housekeeper. Michael, who's been in rehab, broke down during group therapy and revealed even more family secrets. Apparently, Jennifer had been practicing her poisoning techniques on neighborhood pets for months before the attempt on me. She had also been keeping detailed notes about my daily routine, including times when I would be driving alone on dark roads. Howard has completely lost it after discovering the extent of Jennifer's crimes and Mom's manipulations. He had a public meltdown at his company's board meeting, accusing several board members of being part of a grand conspiracy against his family. He's now on indefinite leave and attending intensive therapy sessions. The biggest revelation came from my grandfather's desk. His lawyer discovered something fascinating while defending the will. Apparently, Grandpa had suspected Mom's true nature for years. He had been quietly gathering evidence, working with a private investigator to document her schemes. The change in his will wasn't just about leaving me his estate, it was his final move in a long game to expose the truth about my mother. I found his investigation files hidden in a false bottom of his desk drawer. Reading through them was like watching a master chess player set up the perfect endgame. He knew that Mom would react badly to being disinherited. He knew she would try something desperate. And he knew I would need evidence to protect myself when she did. The most chilling discovery was a series of photos showing Mom and Jennifer meeting with known criminals in seedy motels months before the poisoning attempt. The PI's notes suggest they were shopping for untraceable poisons and discussing ways to make deaths look accidental. Grandpa had known they were planning something but didn't know exactly what or when. Yesterday, I received a letter from Mom through her lawyer. She offered to tell me the whole truth about Dad's death if I agreed to share the inheritance and speak up for her at sentencing. Her manipulations never stop, even from behind bars. Jennifer's real estate office conducted an audit and found she had been running her own scam, targeting elderly clients who were selling their homes. She would convince them to sign paperwork for special investment opportunities that actually transferred their assets to shell companies she controlled. The DA is adding elder abuse charges to her case. I'm selling the Pine Lake property and donating the proceeds to a charity supporting victims of family violence. My grandfather's house at Maple Ridge Drive is becoming a fortress, new security system, cameras everywhere, reinforced doors and windows. The prosecutor says both Mom and Jennifer are looking at serious time. The evidence of premeditation, combined with the new financial crimes and Jennifer's arson attempt, makes any plea deal unlikely. Michael might get lighter treatment due to his cooperation and rehab progress, but he'll still face consequences. I've started therapy to deal with all this. My therapist says it's common for major inheritances to reveal people's true colors, but she admitted that most family squabbles don't escalate to attempted murder and arson. She's helping me understand that mourning the family I thought I had is just as important as protecting myself from the family I actually have. Looking back, my grandfather's last gift wasn't really the inheritance, it was the truth. He could have just cut Mom out quietly, but he set up a situation that would force all the darkness into the light. As I sit in his study, surrounded by the evidence he gathered to protect me, I finally understand what he meant in his last note to me: the truth hurts, but lies kill. Choose truth, always. Update 2, just when I thought this nightmare couldn't get any crazier, everything exploded again. 2 days ago, the police intercepted a prison escape attempt involving my mother. But that's not even the most shocking part. The guards caught Mom and another inmate trying to break out during a medical transport. They found escape plans, fake IDs, and $50,000 in cash hidden in her cell. The money was traced to someone named Robert. Here's where it gets wild, turns out Robert is my father's name, except this isn't my dad. The police investigation revealed that my mother has been living a double life for the past 20 years. She has another husband and 2 children in Michigan, all using my dead father's last name. This Robert was one of her housekeeping clients, and she had convinced him that she was a widow with no family. They've been married for 15 years, which means she was married to both him and Howard at the same time. Her other family had no idea about us, just like we had no idea about them. The Michigan kids are teenagers, and they're devastated. Their father Robert is cooperating with the police. Apparently, Mom had been systematically draining their accounts too, using the same techniques she used on my grandfather. But here's the real kicker: Jennifer knew about them. The police found emails between her and Mom discussing how to keep the Michigan situation quiet. Jennifer had been blackmailing Mom with this information for years, which explains why Mom always gave in to Jennifer's demands. The prosecutor discovered that Jennifer had used this leverage to force Mom into the poisoning plan. The original target wasn't me, it was Robert's daughter in Michigan. Jennifer had convinced Mom that if anything happened to me, people would look too closely at our family history. But Robert's daughter? She would just be a tragic accident, and her life insurance would solve everyone's financial problems. The police raided Jennifer's storage unit and found evidence linking her to 3 unsolved arsons in the past 5 years, all homes belonging to people who had crossed her in some way. They also found a detailed plan for burning down the Pine Lake property for insurance money, scheduled for next month. Howard's ex-wife dropped another bombshell. She provided proof that Jennifer had tried to poison her multiple times during their divorce, but Howard had paid to cover it up. The old medical records and private investigator reports that Howard buried have now resurfaced, leading to additional charges against Jennifer. The investigation uncovered something even more disturbing. Mom has a third identity and possibly another family in Florida. The police found property records and school enrollments under another alias. I'm starting to wonder if anything she ever told me was true. The preliminary report on my father's death suggests there might have been other substances in his system besides his heart medication. Mom's old journals show she had been researching untraceable poisons even back then. Robert, Mom's Michigan husband, flew in to meet me. We spent hours comparing notes, realizing how Mom had played us all. She told each family that her business trips were to visit sick relatives. She used Howard's work schedule and Robert's frequent business travels to maintain her double life. She even arranged for each family's vacations to be at different times so she could be with both. The prosecutor says this has become one of the largest domestic fraud cases she's ever handled. Between the multiple families, the financial crimes, the attempted murders, and now the prison escape attempt, Mom is facing what amounts to several life sentences. Jennifer will likely never see freedom again either. I've moved out of Maple Ridge Drive temporarily after learning about Jennifer's other arsons. The investigator thinks she might have allies on the outside who could try to finish what she started. The Michigan kids want to meet me. Their father thinks it might help them heal to connect with someone who understands what they're going through. I'm nervous about it, but I think Grandpa would want me to help them. After all, they're innocent victims in this too. Sometimes I sit in Grandpa's study, looking at the family photos on the wall, and wonder if any of them were real. Did Mom ever love any of us? Was everything just an elaborate con from the start? I may never know the truth, but I'm done letting her lies control my life. Update 3, it's been 6 months since my last update, and everything has changed, in the best possible way. First, the legal stuff is finally over. Mom got 25 years with no possibility of parole. The judge cited her unprecedented pattern of deception and a complete lack of remorse. Jennifer got 20 years for the attempted murders, arsons, and financial crimes. They'll both be old women when they get out, if they ever do. But that's not the interesting part. Remember how I mentioned the Michigan kids wanted to meet? Well, Sarah, 16F, and Jason, 14M, flew out with their dad Robert 3 months ago. We spent a weekend just talking, crying, and looking through old photos. They're amazing kids, smart, kind, and so much stronger than I was at their age. The real surprise came when Robert introduced me to his sister Claire, who flew in to support the kids. She's a child psychologist specializing in family trauma, and she's been helping all of us process this mess. She also introduced me to her best friend, James, 37M, a detective who worked on investigating Mom's Florida identity. James and I hit it off immediately. He understands trauma and healing in a way few people do. We started dating 2 months ago, and it feels more real than any relationship I've ever had. He makes me laugh, supports my healing process, and most importantly, he's completely honest about everything. The biggest news? I'm pregnant. James and I just found out last week. When I told him, he got down on one knee right there in Grandpa's study and proposed. Said he'd been carrying the ring for weeks, waiting for the right moment. I said yes, of course. Sarah and Jason are thrilled about becoming an aunt and uncle. They visit every month now, and we're converting 2 rooms at Maple Ridge Drive into their personal spaces. Robert met someone new too, a lovely widow who knows our whole story and has been incredibly supportive of our unconventional family arrangement. I finally figured out what to do with my life. I'm using part of the inheritance to start a foundation helping children of convicted parents get therapy and education support. Claire is helping me set it up, and we're already working with several families affected by similar situations. The Pine Lake property has been transformed into our first therapy retreat center. We host weekend workshops for families dealing with trauma and betrayal. Watching other people heal and connect has been incredibly rewarding. Michael completed rehab and is doing well in a halfway house. He's been helping us identify other victims of Jennifer's scams, trying to make amends in his own way. Howard is still in therapy but doing better. He attended our foundation's first fundraising event last month and seemed genuinely proud of what we've created. But the most magical moment happened last night. James and I were sitting on the porch swing at Maple Ridge Drive, talking about baby names. I felt a kick for the first time, right as we were discussing naming him Thomas if it's a boy. I swear I could feel Grandpa smiling down at us. Grandpa's last note said, "The truth hurts, but lies kill." He was right about the first part, but he forgot something important: the truth also heals. It frees you to find your real family, not the ones who share your DNA, but the ones who share your values, your heart, and your future. James is calling me to dinner now. Sarah and Jason are video calling tonight to help us with wedding plans. My new family is waiting. And for the first time in my life, I'm completely, unreservedly happy.